It's time, Aaron. The people demand it. It's coming soon. It's the mini PC.
PC Mini.
The PC Mini. So, this PC Mini thing is blowing up all over the internet. Some people are for it, some people are against it, some people don't know what to think. We're here to tell you what to think.
That's right.
These are the 30 games that must be on the PC Mini.
We demand it. We demand it. And before we get into it, I just briefly want to say that we touched on the PC Mini 2 or 3 episodes ago, Boat. And we weren't, I wouldn't say we were positive about it. We were just sort of, we just talked about it. We were like, eh. But I've sort of turned the corner on this thing a little bit. And one thing that did that to me is the fact that this thing got a lot of, like, people are playing this thing for laughs. Oh, the PC Mini, now they're making a mini of everything. It's hilarious. I don't see why it's so hilarious. I think they're all hilarious. I don't think it's so hilarious that the PC Mini, everybody laughs at that one, but everyone's super cool with the NES Mini. It's just the Mini of games. People have memories of DOS. You know, people have played games on DOS. A lot of people that are making fun of this are young and stupid, and they need to be taught a lesson, and that's what we're here for. These are the 30 games that I demand are included on the PC Mini, and I think we picked out some good games. And I'll also mention that while I don't think these are the best 30 games in the history of DOS, I don't think they're the best 30 games of all time. I thought this was a decent collection of mostly PC-centric games that give you a flavor for the PC over the years and that are still be pretty fun to play today. So with that in mind, and we're going to run and shake through these things in a hurry because there's 30 of these bad boys, and we're going to just run through them just real quick. So, and these are in no particular order, Boat, all right? So, first out of the gate, I would put in as the first game SimCity, released in '93. SimCity is a game where you build cities. It was a big-time player, and the series is still around. Did you play any SimCity back in the day?
SimCity is great because it was the first God game that was very popular. Now, I'm sure there's going to be people that come out of the woodwork and say, it wasn't the first God game, it wasn't the first city building game, but it was the first one that gained some major traction. And the thing that made it cool was that it was very easy to get into. It was very easy to understand what was going on. Mm-hmm. You've got your residential zones, you got your commercial zones, you got your industrial zones. You put a power plant down, you start putting zones down, stuff starts to happen. You see these things change and grow. You see traffic on the streets. It's an awesome game. It deserves to be on the PC Mini.
I agree. So next, now we're trying to get a kind of a wide swath of games. So we got to have a sports game in there. Now, DOS gaming back in the day wasn't necessarily known for its top shelf sports game, but I picked one, and actually we agreed on this one, World Class Leaderboard Golf, 1989. This had digitized sound. It looked like golf. It played a nice game. It had the official golf meter that you use for every golf game thereon.
Looks like he hit the tree, Jim.
A great game. That's all you need to say. That's all you need to say. So, number 4. Number 3, I should say, Jazz Jackrabbit. Now, if you played shareware games or games from Apogee and whatnot back in the day, Jazz Jackrabbit, it was the PC answer to Sonic. It's been described as Sonic with guns, Boat, which I think is a pretty apt description. You play Jazz Jackrabbit, a green bunny with a headband and a Uzi or a machine gun. You run around jumping on stuff, killing it. Fun game. A good little platformer. Do I say this is better than Sonic? No, but I thought it was, in terms of action games on the PC, and you've got to admit the PC wasn't known for its action games early on. This game I thought stood out pretty well. Number 4, and by the way, these are in no particular order as I mentioned. We're going to go with Wolfenstein 3D. It sort of started the whole first-person Doom-ish type game. It was a fun game. It was based on the original, it was vaguely based on the original Castle Wolfenstein games from way back in the DOS days. And in this game, you run around killing Nazis. Pretty simple stuff, a lot of fun. Did you ever have a copy of this one?
I think that this one definitely deserves a place because it's such a seminal title.
Sure.
Everything that is, Call of Duty, Battlefield, all of that stems from this one title.
Sure. Next on the docket, number 5. And this was we discussed this one, and I went ahead and picked what is considered the most popular one, King's Quest IV. You have to have a King's Quest game on there. This one was from '88, and one of the reasons I put this on there, aside from the fact that it's popular amongst fans, is that it was They had refined the interface. It had nice VGA graphics. It looked good, and it was a more refined version of the King's Quest games. Now, you played the original King's Quest, as I recall.
I played the original King's Quest. You know, this one is notable because it's the first game in the series to have a female protagonist.
Oh, okay. Very good. So, see, there you go. So, moving down the line. And this one you had to have on the list, otherwise you'd be murdered. And it's number 6, Doom. Doom! I don't think we have to go into Doom too much, but when this thing came out, it was blowing the mind of everyone. I remember playing this over at the Chud's house. He goes, "You got to see this game." He loaded it up. We were blown away. Couldn't believe how awesome it looked. I can't explain. It was one of those titles that just could not exist. But I'm sure you didn't see it until way after it came out originally.
Well, you know, it's funny because I remember how big Doom was. Mostly because of the fact that it was really the first. I think this was the original Doom. Did it have the multiplayer mode built in?
It absolutely did. Yeah.
And I remember at all these different places they would have a computer set up where you could do multiplayer Doom, and these were like places in the mall where they'd rent space out. They'd have all these computers lined up. So it was the game that first kicked off the whole deathmatch concept.
And hopefully on the PC Mini there will be some way to do some sort of multiplayer, which would be that's another thing people hadn't thought about. That'd be kind of neat to have the ability to do multiplayer.
Yeah.
Number 7. Now we talked. Boat suggested Zork, which is a great suggestion. I went ahead and wrote in Zork Trilogy. Which was released in '86. That's the first 3 Zorks. Zork, the Great Underground Empire. Zork 2, the Wizard of Frobaz. And Zork 3, the Dungeon Master. These were text games. And these were the text games of their day, weren't they, Bo? I mean, these were... You can play them anywhere. They're great. But for a DOS system, these should be included. You got to have some text games in there to get a feel of what it was like to be playing games in that era. And the Zork games were some of the first games released for almost every system. So they're great games. So, number 8. And I put in a game that has gained popularity recently, but at the time it was sort of overlooked, which was System Shock. Released in '94. It's a first-person action-adventure game developed by an outfit called Looking Glass. And it's got a 3D engine. It's sort of like Doom, except in an RPG format. It's really impressive. And back in the day when this came out, it got rave reviews. I'm guessing you probably haven't seen this title, but it's a really solid title, and its legend has grown over the years. And it's an excellent title to include on the PC Mini. Number 9, you got to have a shooter on this thing, Boat. And we both called this one.
Now, when you say shooter, you're talking about a shoot 'em up, right?
That's right, a shoot 'em up game. It's Raptor: Call of the Shadows. It's a pretty darn good looking top down shooter. It's standard fare. It didn't reinvent the wheel, but the DOS format was really starved for these sorts of games. They just didn't see them that often. And this was a really fun game. I remember playing this back in the day and really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for shooters, early shooters on the PC, you couldn't do much better than that one. Number 10. It's funny this list should come up because we just covered this on on the sister show, ARG Presents, and it's One Must Fall 2097. The robot or giant robot fighting game.
Now, do you think of all the fighting games on the PC platform, this is the one to include?
Absolutely.
You better make a pretty good case, because there are going to be a lot of people that disagree with that.
Sure. Well, let me ask you, just for fun, what would you have included like in its stead?
A game that people have heard of.
And I'm looking at PC-centric games here.
Rise of the Robots.
Oh my God! I'm not going to dignify that.
People know what that game is. No one's ever heard of this thing.
One Must Fall 2097 is a great game, and if you ask anyone what their favorite DOS era fighting game is, I can guarantee you they're going to say this. There's nothing even close. Now, are there ports and excellent ports of Mortal Kombat and even Street Fighter going to decent port? Yes, but they're not PC centric, and also. This game, I would stand up against just about any of those fighting games. I mean, it is deep, and it's fun, and it holds up. So, yes, despite your protests, it's great. Number 11, a game, I remember my buddy quit the Amiga over this game. This is the game that made him leave, and it was Magic Carpet. Magic Carpet, a very visually stunning game for its time. Did not come out in the Amiga, and that was his exit. He went and got himself a PC so he could play it. Do you remember this one at all?
You've told me about this game several times, and I know that it was a graphical powerhouse.
It was. It was a beautiful game, and you fly around on a magic carpet and shoot stuff. It's fun. It's a really neat game. I mean, if you looked at it in today's eyes, it almost has a tech demo-y feel to it. But I mean, it was a quantum
Was it
leap.
the Shadow of the Beast of the PC?
No, it was way better than that. But it wasn't as pretty. Well, I guess it was. Now, this is a controversial inclusion, and I'll admit I've waffled on this one between 3 games. But I'm going to put in 1980s Rogue. Now, Rogue is Rogue. It's pretty much the same on almost every system. It's a lot like Zork. It was sort of, everyone had one, right? It's a dungeon exploration game. It's as basic a game as a game can get. Have you ever had a cup of coffee with a Rogue game in your days?
Absolutely, I love Rogue.
I thought so, and so I knew you'd probably be down with the clown on this one.
Yeah. Now you've got to put in the original with the ASCII art.
That's it. That's it. 1980. That's the one. Again, I know people are like, "Oh, who's going to pay for this for the PC Mini?" You've got to have some flavor in here.
Well,
and it's a game that holds up.
Let me ask you a question. You've sort of broken your own rule here.
Yes.
Because what year did Rogue come out?
1980.
What year did the PC come out? 1981.
Okay, but it was an early adopter.
You can't put it in
I can do it, and I will. And it is. A PC version was fine. So, now this one was a tough one, Bo. Number 13. And it's funny, we both mentioned this one, and I was right there with you. I have included in this one, number 13, TIE Fighter, 1994. Now, there was some discussion amongst me and my consultant, the Chud, on this one, but we both agree that TIE Fighter was the better of the two.
I hope every time you say the Chud, you put a picture of him up.
I should.
Yeah.
TIE Fighter was it was just what you think it is. It was simulated you driving around a TIE Fighter, doing missions. The original game in the series was X-Wing, which was also very good. Another game that I was longing for on the Amiga that never came. And TIE Fighter was just better. It was just a better game. Now, eventually they released X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, which was really good, but it was past my limits on years for this, so I didn't choose it. But TIE Fighter, a great game. And I'm guessing, did you ever have a cup of coffee?
I've never played either of these
They're
games.
very good games.
I've heard nothing but good things about them.
They're really good. And again, this is when the PC was starting to really get its stride in the gaming world. Now, number 14, and I had to put this one in because it's a very popular game of its day. Warcraft, 1994. This is Warcraft Humans in the Works, real-time strategy game by Blizzard. Of course, this ended up, good Lord, think of the amount of money that this series has spawned over the years. Really, I think the top title in the Warcraft series is probably regarded as Warcraft 2. I always heard that was the one, but Warcraft was a pretty good game. Even I played it. It's a real-time strategy game, so it shows you how good that was. And a lot of fun, and a moneymaker. Blizzard's still around. They're doing pretty good. I recommend it. Number 15, another one that it's funny, we wrote our lists up separately, and we included so many similar ones. This is another one, Oregon Trail. You got to have it. You've got to have it. It's aside from the fact that it's an educational game that you could put on the PC Mini, so you got that going for you. It's also great. It held up, over the years. I just bought my girlfriend a little Oregon Trail standalone handheld last year, and she plays with it. It's a fun game. You learn something. This one's been around forever. It came out in '71, and it's been put on everything. Great game about surviving the Oregon Trail. It's a must. This is one, boat number 16, that you reminded me of, and I hadn't included on my list, which was Battle Chess. Got to have a good chess game. PC was known for that. That's one of the things they used to have at Chessmaster 2000 or 3000 or whatever. Battle Chess was the one that gave you the pretty graphics.
Right.
You could sit around and watch these guys. We would just move guys into position just to watch the battles as the two chess pieces would fight it out. Great game. It also offered network play, which was something that was not every game did back in those days. So I always thought that was kind of cool. Now, here's a wacky one here, Boat. We wanted to include an Ultima because Ultima was a big part of the PC and the Apple as well coming out. And I went with Ultima 6. Much like the King's Quest, this is sort of the one that everyone regards as like peak of the series. It had a huge map. It had VGA graphics. It had sound support for all the new sound cards and stuff, so it looked pretty. It had a good plot. It sounded good.
You've got to have an Ultimate game in the collection.
Yeah, no absolutely. Did you play any of the Ultimas at all?
I played Ultima 4 without the documents and without the maps and was completely lost.
Man. So, and much like the Ultimas, what else did you have to have in here? You've got to have a Bard's Tale game, which is another game. C64 had a good run on it, and so did the PC. And I went ahead and just put the original Bard's Tale, 1985. The game had a lot going for it, and especially in the era, 3D graphics. They had a good feel for dungeoneering, crawling around. It was a lot of fun, and it had it was for the older games. It had a good modern sort of feel to it, a good flavor to it, and plus it's Bard's Tale. It's another that had kicked off a tremendous series. Now, number 19. Again, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but this game was huge on the PC, and that was a lot of fun. And that was Star Control 2. Great campaign mode. It crushed the first one in that regard, which was admittedly was very sparse. And then just fighting your ships was a lot of fun too. To go through and just have a little melee, a lot of fun. And it's another one that holds up great. Star Control 2, the Urquan Masters. I recommend that. Here's one we agreed on straight away. Number 20, Maniac Mansion. Maniac Mansion, what can you say about this one? Another one that just it lives forever. The lore of. I know you're a big fan. I believe you played it completion.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did a very long Amigos play. It was like 5 hours.
5 hours. That is dedication.
And that was with a walkthrough. We were challenged.
This was out in '87. So it's funny. To me, I thought it was older. To be honest with you, I was surprised. 21, and this is another RPG. That's all. It's a favorite of mine. Now, I wanted to put one of the Dungeons & Dragons games in. There was the Gold Box series, whatever. And this is sort of controversial, and I'll even kind of bow down if someone has one that they think is better. But I always liked it, and I'm stuck in Eye of the Beholder from '91. This is a water-deep adventure where you get hired, and you're trudging around the sewers and stuff. You build a party up, which normally I don't like playing more than one character, but it's cool the way you do it. It's got that sort of old-school 3D aspect, cool the sound, and it's great.
Very atmospheric. I've watched some Let's Plays of that.
It is. Now, Boat, here's one from early '95. Most of the development was in '94. Is Descent. This thing came out of nowhere when it came out, and it was making people sick. It was so smooth and realistic in the way you spin and turn. It's a 3D sort of a spaceship game. It's a real bizarre game in terms of the way when I say 3D, people weren't ready for this game, I don't think. It was so smooth and it was quick.
So it kind of took the first-person shooter concept, but it made it so where there was no floor and there was no ceiling.
Right. It was real. Even today, it was you play it. It make you ill. Now I was more into Descent Free Space, which is sort of the space shooter that was right, but it came out later. But the original Descent's really good. Here's one we both agreed on right out of the gate, Boat. Number 23, Civilization, the original. Did they streamline it? Yes. Did they make marginal efforts to extend it? So yes, but I don't know if they ever made it better than the original. It was great, a lot of fun. You learned something, and it was just the concept. It was brilliant behind it, and a great game to play. Multiplayer, single player, top shelf, and the PC version was pretty good. So, number 24. This is another first-person game that I love, and this is sort of a cult classic, Boat. Rise of the Triad. It took everything that Doom did and turned it sideways. It had platforming elements. It had bizarre powers. The plot was real freaking weird, culty, Illuminati-type stuff. Just a bizarre game, but a lot of fun.
What year did this one come out?
This one came out in '94.
Okay, so right at the cusp of the cutoff.
That's right. In fact, this was right at the cusp. But a great game and a lot of fun. And it's another one where the legend of it came out. People were like, this is weird. And its legend has grown over the years. Now, number 25, this is another one we were in agreement on. You got to have it. If you're going to have Oregon Trail for the kids, you got to have a little something for Dad. Leisure Suit Larry, and you might as well just put the original in there.
Yeah.
1987. It's a graphical adventure game where you play Leisure Suit Larry, who's looking for love.
That's
to be
right.
Courteous about it. He's a scumbag. He's a greasy lounge guy. This game kicked off a massive series, and this was a good one. I played it on several platforms, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And it was clever. A lot of good comedy in it. 26, as we near the end here, and this will go by 2 names. We're going to call it XCOM or UFO Enemy Unknown. This came out in '94, the Micro Approach Classic. I was real close on this one between this or Syndicate. They were both excellent games, but this one edged it out. I will say the PC version of Syndicate is top shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is good. But this is a nutty game where you are basically you're trying to defend the planet against an alien invasion or UFO attack. We had more than a cup of coffee with this one, and it's an interesting game. It's one of these types of games where I actually had a good time playing it, which is not necessarily my bag, but it was a lot of fun. 27, another one we agreed on fully. 1990s Wing Commander. The original Wing Commander. Was it the best of the series? No. They refined the series quite a bit over the years, but it was a crowning achievement in its time, and it still holds up and plays pretty well. And on a proper PC, it runs quite nicely. Wing Commander is a 3D space shooter. But with a lot of atmosphere, a lot of beautiful graphics, a lot of awesome music. There was a lot of panache and flash in it. Great game, and when it came out, it really blew people's minds. Huge, too, at the time. 28. We're going to go with Alone in the Dark, 1992. Now, Alone in the Dark was I was a big, and still am a big H.P. Lovecraft fan, and this thing came out and basically effectively put you in the role of an investigator in a Lovecraftian style mansion. And it's a let's go with exploration, action, adventure game where you take your little professor through the house and try to avoid or kill anything you come across. Very atmospheric. It used a system, a graphical 3D system that had not yet been seen, and it was very innovative at the time. When you look at it now, you're like, oh, look how old it is. But I mean, it's still a fun game, and probably the best of all the Alone in the Dark, and certainly better than the god-awful movie. Less said about that, the better. So, 29. I'm going to go with Myst, which came out in '93. This is one of those games that was very polarizing, Boat. Have you ever given Myst a shot?
Oh yeah, when we first got our computer with the CD-ROM drive, it seemed like it came with it. I don't know if it came with it or not, but I know that we got it very shortly after.
Sure. When the CD-ROMs came out, they usually came with like what were the games that the Myst was the big game.
They all came with the Encarta Encyclopedia.
The Seventh Guest.
Yeah, the
was
Seventh
another
Guest,
one.
Yeah. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
So did you actually get into Myst at all?
Yeah, I played it. I thought it was cool. You know, now it has not aged well. But at the time, it was the first time you'd ever really seen photorealism in games.
Sure.
Even though the screens were static for the most part, the music was fantastic. You know, the puzzles were challenging, but not too challenging, at least early on for me.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of the seminal releases on the PC.
It's an atmospheric game. And what they did with those static screens is it was very clever, is they would record a transition of whichever direction you would choose, and it would sort of seamless that it would transition. So it was the illusion of an animation at that point. Then they made 1 million of these things, and Myst, one of the greatest selling video games of all time. It made a fortune. So if you're into that sort of thing, there you go. And then rounding out the list at number 30, I'm going to go down with Masters of Orion. It's a turn-based strategy game that came out in '93, and it was a very popular title. It spawned a series of those master games. It's got a little colonization. It's got a little city building. It's got a little diplomacy in it. It was a big series that you don't hear many people talk about now, but I think the inclusion of it on this list is mandatory. It was really good. Now, let's go over some, just since we've hit 30, let's go over a couple almost got there but didn't, and some stuff that we disagreed on. Bo, you had mentioned Lost Vikings on the list. A good choice. I thought that was a pretty fun game, so I could see that one going on. Silent Service, the submarine game, which is a lot of fun. Now, I preferred 688 Attack Sub myself, but that's just me. You mentioned a game called Dope Wars. which I had not played, but I think I played like the online version of that. Had you ever actually played Dope Wars?
I played Dope Wars mostly on a TI-85.
Really?
But it did get a PC release, and I thought it would just, if you're looking for variety, there's nothing else like those Wars series of games.
Lemmings is another one. I was trying to pick something that was mostly PC-centric, although it didn't totally succeed. But I always think of Lemmings as more of an Amiga game. But
it was an Amiga game if you had an Amiga. But who had an Amiga?
Right, but the PC version is fine.
Yeah.
I played it many times, and it's a great game. It's another great title. Of course, we mentioned X-Wing as one. Boat, another one you mentioned. It's another great game. Was Monkey Island, which would be perfectly acceptable game. I liked Monkey Island a lot. Of course, we played the Amiga version of that on the show. Another one my buddy mentioned was Command and Conquer, which was it was in the, by my standards of 95 or sooner. It made the cutoff barely. Command and Conquer was a great game, and you could absolutely put it in there and transpose it for Masters of Orion or one of the other games. I broke it down, and you basically had... we only had one sports game on the list. We had about 8 action games. I think there was like 7 strategy games, 4 first-person shooters, 3 or 4 graphic adventures, 5 role-playing games, a couple of flight sim type games.
So overall, a pretty balanced list other than sports games. And I think that you'll agree with me that we didn't play a whole lot of sports games on the PC.
Well,
there might be some awesome ones out there that we just never got a handle on.
If you're going to include sports games, because I thought about this, I mean, you could include stuff like Earl Weaver or the game series, Summer and Winter Games, which they're fine titles, but a lot of those titles, I think more of the C64 than I do the PC. And there were a couple that were like Bard's Tale. It's more of a C64 game, but had a PC release. And I was trying to be more PC centric. I guess the point of all this mishmash is, we rattled off 30 or 35 games that could be included on the PC Mini. And there are plenty more. And we cut off at 95. I had a strict cutoff because that's when Windows 95 came out. And so then you get into and in the demonstration for the PC Mini, they showed them playing Quake, which came out, I think, in 96. Came out years later. So that will open up a whole new area of games. But
we might have to do a follow-up of, if 95 to when would you say the next era of PC gaming ended? If we say that the first era was 81 to 95, really, I think you could probably break it down to say the CGA EGA era, so it'd be like 81 to say 89 or so, right?
Yeah.
And then 90, 94. What do you think that next era would be?
Well, when Windows came out, I mean, no one made games specifically. I mean, there were a couple, but no one made games for Windows 3.11, let's say. When Windows 95 came out and they had that unifying platform, then you started seeing games made exclusively for Windows. It used to make us mad, to be honest with you. But I'd say probably about 96 or 97, or even if you're being generous, we'll say 98 when Windows 98 came out. Then you saw a lot of games made specifically for Windows. So there's that, between 95 and 98, there's sort of that transition period.
Yeah, I think, beyond that, it might be worthwhile to actually just start grouping games by resolution. What was the max res this game could output? And that would give you a pretty good era jump. Because otherwise, you can't really say, well, Windows 98 was not exactly like a watershed moment in gaming.
Well, the way I look at it, here's my philosophy on this particular list. The PC Mini is not going to have a Windows license. Okay, so therefore, I didn't want to have anything in it that would have needed Windows.
Right.
So everything else I disregarded.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Now, again, they've put Quake out there, so one would assume this thing can handle. I mean, who knows what's in it? I think it's an ARM processor, someone said. So they could clearly handle stuff much more advanced than this. But I contend that if you stick to this era and you will appeal to the people that would buy a product like this to play these games. They for the most part, they hold up. They're easy to play, and you're not going to be, because, I mean, no one's going to buy the PC Mini to play the PC version of Mortal Kombat 2.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to need stuff that you're not going to play any other place, or very seldomly are going to play. And I think that's what I took into account when I was compiling this list. So, that's the list. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments. There's no wrong answer, really. It's just my personal list, and Bo, we compiled something together. If you have a suggestion, I would love to hear it. And maybe somewhere down the line, once the PC Mini gets crowdfunded, we can talk to the guys behind it and see their reasoning behind what they chose. It'll be interesting. I'm sure that not all these games, and maybe very few, are going to make their list, depending on what they're after. But when you look at this list, and I'll close with this, Boat, what ruled PCs in that era? Role-playing games, strategy games, flight sims, those type of games. Action games, again, as I mentioned before, were not something that the PC excelled at for the majority of that era.
First-person shooters.
That's
also.
right. Yeah, towards the end.
Yeah.
And so those are the games you want to include. Those are the games people want to play. Those are the games they grew up with. And
I think it's important to include, the basically the PC giving it its best shot with something like Jackrabbit, but that was not why a lot of people were tuning in.
Right. And I mean, for example, I saw a lot of people talk about Commander Keen, that series. And if I was going to include a Keen, it'd be Keen Dreams. I thought that was the best. But I mean, I just didn't think those were that good a game, So, and Jackrabbit I thought was a better game. So there you go. Anyway, that's all I got, Bo.
All right.